In this demonstration, you will learn how to register and use another type with dependency injection. Let's switch to Visual Studio. Here I've started the customer's application. As you know, you can use the View menu to switch to Products. But right now, the Products view only shows here this text block. Now let's change this and let's display here some products. So let's stop the application. Let's go to the Solution Explorer and let's expand here the model folder. As you can see, there is a product.cs file that contains here the new product class. This class has the properties name and description. In the data folder, I have also created a product data provider CS file that contains here this iProduct data provider interface. It has a getAllAsync method that returns the products. Then there is also the product data provider class that implements this interface. In the getAllAsync method, a hard-coded list of products is returned. Instead of this hard-coded list, you could also call here a web API or a database. Now, to use this product data provider class in the view model, respectively the interface, you need to register it with dependency injection. So let's go to the Solution Explorer and let's open here the code behind file of our app object. Let's scroll down to the configure services method, and here on the services collection I call the addTransient method and I register this iProduct data provider interface, and for that interface let's register the product data provider class. Now an instance of this class is used when this interface is required. This means in a view model you can now take an iProduct data provider as a constructor parameter. Let's do this in the products view model. So let's open the Solution Explorer and let's expand here the view model folder and let's open the products view model. As you can see, this class here is empty. Now let's create here a constructor with a CTOR snippet. I press the tab key twice, and on that constructor let's define an iProduct data provider parameter. I press Ctrl- to add a using directive for the data namespace. Let's call the parameter product data provider, and in the constructor let's initialize a field with that parameter. I press Ctrl- to generate that field. As it is initialized in the constructor, you can also change this here to a read-only field. Now let's add a breakpoint here and let's run the application. As you can see, the breakpoint was hit. When you hover here the constructor parameter, you can see that it contains a product data provider instance. Great, so dependency injection actually worked. Now you can implement this view model. In the view model, let's create a property with a prop snippet. Let's define as a type an observable collection of product. I press escape to close IntelliSense and now I add a closing angle bracket. Now let's press Ctrl- to add a using directive for the system collections object model namespace that contains the observable collection class. I press Ctrl- again to add a using directive for the model namespace that contains the product class. If you want, you could also create another view model for the product. But as this will be a read-only screen, I just expose here the model to the user interface. Now let's call this property products and let's define just a getter and let's initialize it with a new observable collection. The next step is to override the loadAsync method of the viewModel base class. Here, let's first check if our product's observable collection has any items. I press Ctrl- to add a using directive for the system link namespace that contains the any method. If the products are already loaded, let's just jump out of this method. Now, if we don't have any products, let's create here a products variable and let's await from the product data provider the getAllAsync method. As you can see, Visual Studio has added here automatically the async keyword. Now let's use here the for each snippet to insert a for each loop. Let's call the item product and we iterate our products collection. In the for each loop, let's call on the observable collection the add method to add every product to that collection. Now you can see products is underlined in green because it may be null here. So let's include here an if statement and let's check if products is not null. And only if that's the case, let's iterate through the products. Great, now the view model is implemented. We have here that products property and the load async method that loads the products. Let me remove here the breakpoint from the constructor and now let's go to the Solution Explorer. The last step is now to use this products property in the products view. So let's open here the products view SAML file. Let's delete here this text block and instead let's use a data grid to display the products. The data grid has an item source property and now let's bind that one to the products view model that is in the data context. On that view model, you have created a products property that contains the products. On this data grid, I also set a margin of 10 and I set the isReadOnly property to true, as users should not be able to modify the data. Now let's run the application and let's see if this works. Let's go to the View menu and let's navigate to Products. As you can see, the data grid in the Products view shows the expected 6 coffees. These coffees were loaded in the Products view model by using the injected iProduct data provider. Alright, now let's wrap up what you have learned in this module.